Hello, everyone. My name is Carolyn Callahan. Thank you so much for spending part of your evening with us here discussing the JCPS school choice proposal. We are hosting community forums throughout the district to make sure we receive as much feedback as possible before bringing this proposal to the board for a vote. And tonight, you will have a chance to ask us your questions. We have 3 text lines for you to use. Now, if you have a question about dual resides and feeder patterns, you're going to text 502-309-9316. To ask a question about the magnet strategy, text 502-410-1148. And if your question is about the Choice Zone Support Plan, you can text us at 502-208-5915. Now remember, we can only accept text messages at these numbers. The text lines are now open, and we look forward to receiving your questions and getting you some answers tonight. First tonight, Dr. Marty Polio has an overview of the school choice proposal. After this video presentation, we'll begin our question and answer session. You may text in your questions at any time.
For us at JCPS, we talk a lot about what the current state is and what our future state vision is for everything in JCPS that is going to positively impact student outcomes. And there is no doubt for us, the best way to predict the future is to create it. And that's what we are trying to do. We have a vision for what JCPS can be like in 3 or 4 years, specifically when it comes to student outcomes and changing the necessary foundations in JCPS to do that. And one of those is with our student choice proposal. And it is pretty simple what our future state vision looks like. First and foremost, we want to foster a transparent and trustworthy system of resource magnets serving diverse student populations. Simply put, as you will find out, that is having magnets that actually are magnetic and attract students to a specific school for a learning style, that reflect our student population, and that also are very transparent so students and families know why they got in or why they did not get into a magnet. Secondly, which we have not done for a long time, the onus of diversity in JCPS has been placed upon students, specifically in West Louisville, and predominantly black students. 95% of the students who are bussed out of their neighborhoods to achieve diversity are students from West Louisville, and they are black students. And so we want to provide black and brown students with a choice to attend thriving, diverse schools close to home with strong resource programs, or continue to leave their community if that's what the family chooses. And finally, this plan will improve experiences for all students and families, leading with equity in mind and building stronger trust. And so I want to reiterate, we will be focusing a lot on students in West Louisville in this plan, but this student choice proposal will positively impact every student within JCPS. So first and foremost, let's talk about our dual resides proposal and our feeder pattern proposal. One thing you will see as we come up throughout this plan and this presentation is that our elementary, our middle, and our high school student assignment plans were all developed independently and not together, which has really developed and made a lack of feeder patterns within the student assignment plan in JCPS. So very little predictability for families and very little choice for students in West Louisville, what we have called our satellite zones. Now what we are looking to is calling that our choice zone, because we are going to provide choice for students in the choice zone who have not had that choice before. Up until this point, if a student has not been accepted into a magnet program in this choice zone area, they must attend a school outside of their community that is not their choice. And unfortunately, 3 out of 4 of those are Title I high poverty schools. So let's take a look at the new choice zone that we have for you right here. The map shows that it is predominantly West Louisville, but also includes neighborhoods in the Smoketown area, Lower Brownsboro Road area, Southwest Louisville as well. The choice zone, as you can see, instead of our current plan, which is chopped up into 20 to 25 different zones, with middle and high school drawn separately so they don't align with each other. That has led to a lot of feeder pattern problems. So a student who lives in the neighborhood close to the academy at Shawnee, their middle school assigned school may be Camerer Middle School, all the way out in East Louisville. Meanwhile, their high school is at Valley High School. So today in JCPS, we had a family, a parent who sent one middle school child to Camerer Middle School all the way out by Ballard, and another child in high school out to Valley Station at Valley High School. That's not fair to the family, and it's not equitable for all of our students in West Louisville. So you can see, first and foremost, in this choice zone, all of these are now aligned with the middle and high school. So 100% of the students who live in a zone, so if you look at the top corner where you see Ballard and Camerer, 100% of the students in that particular choice zone area will have the opportunity to attend Camerer, and then all of them will attend Ballard. So if they leave their community, outside of their community, a school farther away from home, all of them get the opportunity to attend Camerer and Ballard High School. But you can also see that we have our elementary schools listed by network. So the light green area is Network 1, and that correlates with schools that are in southwest portion of the county. Area B are those in the southeastern part of the county, as you can see, J-Town, Moore, Seneca, and the middle schools that correlate with them. And then also on Network 3, which is the red zone, you can see that's Ballard, Eastern, Wagner, Atherton on the east side. So we correlate that specific area with the side of the town that the student may choose to go to. But as you will see, all of the students in the choice zone will also have an opportunity to attend an elementary school, a middle school, and a high school close to home. And the elementary schools, as you can see down the right-hand side, you see the choices that they have in Network 1, Network 2, and Network 3. So every single student in this choice zone will now have the opportunity to continue to go farther away from home option if that's what they choose, and also a close to home option if that's what the student chooses. So let's look at a couple of examples here specifically so we can focus on what the options are for a family. First of all, student A. The star on the map shows you that the student is in the choice zone and is actually in the Ballard choice zone area. And so this family that lives in this house, which is very close to the academy at Shawnee, their options for elementary school. If they choose to stay close to home, the family can choose between Portland, Atkinson, Breck Frank, and Bick Elementary. All of these schools are in the choice zone, and they have the opportunity to put down a first, second choice, just like we do now. Or if we look out to the Ballard reside zone, the family would have options away from home. That include Chansey, Dunn, Norton Commons, Norton, Wilder, and Zachary Taylor. So a family who lives in the household noted by the star near the academy at Shawnee has the choice of 10 elementary schools for their cluster. 6 that are away from home and 4 that are close to home. And then at the middle school, the family would then have 2 options. One would be the new West End Louisville Middle School. We are going to have to build a new middle school because unfortunately, because of student assignment, we haven't invested in West Louisville, and we have not built a middle or high school in West Louisville since 1952. So that is something we need to do immediately. And then the away from home option for the student A would be Camerer Middle School. At the high school level, the family would have 2 options, the academy at Shawnee or Ballard High School. So as you could see, every single family, there's a clear feeder pattern whether the family chooses to attend school close to home or farther away from home. Now, we talked a lot about how this will positively impact every student in the community. So let's look at student B, who, as you can see, lives in the far northeast corner of Jefferson County. Now, instead of having 13 different elementary clusters, middle schools that are designed differently, and high schools that are designed differently, the family that lives in that specific area has a clear feeder pattern. 100% of the students in that Ballard resides would attend either one of those 6 elementary schools. All of them would then attend Camerer Middle School, and 100% would feed to Ballard High School, which is very different than what we have now. So let's look at student B's options. Just like before, student B would have the elementary options close to home, Chansey, Dunn, Norton Commons, Norton, Wilder, Zachary, Taylor, or they could attend also the school in the choice zone, which would be their option, which would be Portland Elementary. Secondly, at middle school, 100% if they choose their assigned school would go to Camera Middle School, and 100% would then attend Ballard High School. So as you can see, a clear feeder pattern if the student chooses their assigned school. All families, whether in the choice zone or the reside zone, can still apply for magnet programs or networks and transfers to attend a different school if that's what they choose to do. So let's take a quick look at what feeder patterns means. This is our current proposal right now. As you can see, the shaded areas are all of our current elementary clusters. They should be aligned as closely as possible, elementary, middle to high. When we overlay the orange lines, these are our middle school lines. As you can see, they're very different than the elementary school zones. And then finally, if we overlay the high school lines, which are the purple lines, you can see they are all developed separately, which means different feeder patterns for students and families all over the community. This is not the best way to serve students. Our proposed plan, as you can see, 100% of the elementary school zones clusters align perfectly with our high schools. We came as close as we possibly could with our middle schools. Unfortunately, they were designed in different areas than our high schools. But as you can see, if we overlay the middle school lines, the orange lines, and the high school lines, you can definitely see the improvement in the feeder patterns that we now have, which is going to help every student in this district with predictability. You see our current state feeder patterns. As you can see at the very top of these are all of our high schools. Now look how many middle schools feed into some of these high schools and how many elementaries. In the middle of the page, you can see Seneca High School, for example. Seneca High School has 7 different middle schools that feed in to Seneca High School that are assigned. These are not even application programs. And 14 different elementary schools. Each different color is a different cluster. So as you can see, we are moving students all around the district through the assigned program, and that is not what's best for students. And unfortunately, the students who are being moved the most are our students of poverty and our students of color. Now let's look at our feeder patterns based on the recommendations. Clearly you can see a difference because instead of having 7 different middle schools, instead we're having 1 middle school, 2, and at the absolute worst 3 middle schools and about 5 or 6 elementary schools. This one is the example for Network 2 and can clearly show you how our feeder patterns have improved based on this recommendation. So as we remember our why from the very beginning, what we are looking for in a student assignment plan and student choice is first of all consistency. All students get a choice close to home. For 38 years, every student in this district, except those in our choice zone, have had the opportunity to go close to home. It is time we provide all students with that consistency if that's what the family wants. Then we have continuity, which is improved feeder patterns and predictability for families. So when families enter into JCPS in elementary school, there is a clear pattern of predictability if they choose their assigned school from elementary to middle to high school. And finally, choice. Students in the choice zone have that additional choice which they haven't had before. And all of this will lead to an improved sense of belonging, which leads to positive outcomes for our students, and without a doubt, improved attendance for all of our students in our schools. This is our why. Another very important aspect of this proposal is that we provide the necessary resources and supports to our schools in our choice zone. Currently, there are 13 schools in our choice zone. We will have 11 elementary schools, 1 middle school, and 1 high school. And it will be imperative that we provide the resources and supports that the students need in order to be successful. And so you can see our choice zone support plans include a new $12 million investment in our schools in the choice zone. Clearly, this will be in addition to our current funding, but high schools, the Academy at Shawnee, will receive an additional $2.5 million a year. Our brand new middle school, on top of their existing budget, will receive an additional $2.5 million every year, and our 11 elementary schools will receive an additional $7 million every single year for a total investment of $12 million. And we plan on providing this to our schools in a variety of ways. First of all, in our academic supports, having extended learning after school and in the summertime, expansion of our career pathways in both middle and high school. I've been very proud that at the Academy at Shawnee, we just added the best flight simulator in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. And so this is what we have to continue to do to invest in programming. We will have meaningful and relevant curriculum for our students. We will also have college courses, both dual credit and AP at the high school level, and magnet program enhancing at the elementary school level. We're going to have additional counselors and additional mental health practitioners throughout the school, and enhanced athletic and extracurricular activities. And then very important is that we're going to pay teachers more. We're going to pay teachers more to be in our choice zone schools and to stay there, along with our administrators as well. We will have small class size, one-to-one technology and the best facilities in our choice zone. And then to answer the question of how we're going to ensure that that continues year after year, whether another superintendent is here or another board, we are going to put these resources and supports in our policies, and it's a part of the policies that will be brought forward to the board around student assignment, so that if this changes in the future, it has to be done at a board meeting and publicly, so that the community knows that these resources may be changing. But it will be in policy, which means it guarantees the supports for our choice zone schools year after year. And then we will be asking in policy that our board votes for policy that we have an outside entity come in and audit every single year to make sure that we have a public report for our board and the community to show that we are providing the resources and getting the outcomes that we want in our choice zone schools. And finally, a big proposal is our magnet strategies. I said early on in this presentation, we wanted to make sure our magnets are magnetic, that attract students to a type of learning that the family wants, that they reflect our student demographics throughout the district with diversity, and that it's also very transparent in how we accept students into our magnet programs. So let's take a look at a few of the highlights, and I would encourage you, there is a lot to this plan. Dig into our proposal on our website, but clearly we have to clarify the purpose of magnets throughout the district to make them magnetic. We need to implement our JCPS magnet program standards, which are based on Magnet Schools of America, and make sure that all of those are based on best practice. Review our non-magnetic magnets. So those magnets that are not attracting students, we need to make sure that we either remove that magnet or provide that school with the support that they need to make sure it's magnetic. We need to ensure that our magnets are actually magnetic and they're whole school magnets, so that we, through student assignment, are not placing a child or a family into a magnet that may not be the type of learning they want. For instance, Spanish immersion. We can't place a student in the 3rd or 4th grade into a Spanish immersion program when they haven't had the first 3 years of support that a student who chose that magnet would have. We need to dedicate resources and support and implement this magnet redesign process. We are going to create diversity targets and goals for our schools so that our magnets reflect our student population. Once again, we're going to remove school-initiated exits. We believe, just like every school, that when a student is accepted into that school, the school and the community needs to step up to support those students. We'll have centralized lottery for schools that use a lottery, and we're going to align mirror themes so that we have a performing arts school that may have 400 applicants, but only 100 children get accepted into that. We need to make another one of those and develop another performing arts magnet, because clearly there is a desire for that in student learning. And then finally, access. Once again, replicate our popular magnets, develop new technology plans and outreach programs so that parents understand their options and there's much more clarity around how this works. Review and adjust our magnet boundaries, especially at the traditional school programs. And then finally, create K-12 continuation plans. So if a student is in a Spanish immersion elementary, we offer that at the middle and the high school as well. So finally, you will see our implementation timeline. Nothing will change for next year. In 22-23, all of our assignments are complete at this time. or we will use the current process to do that. But we would like to have these implemented for our showcase of schools and selection for the 23-24 school year. I want to reiterate, no students will have to leave their current school. If they are already in that school, that's where they will remain. For the 23-24 school year, we will begin this process with kindergartners, 6th graders, and 9th graders. More information will follow from that as we move forward. So we want to hear from you. It's been very important that we're out in the community. Hopefully you've had the opportunity to join us at one of our feedback sessions and community forums all over the community. But if not, you can access this information on our website. The entire 311-page plan is currently on our website, including all of the maps. The ability to find parents and families where you may change your school assignment. You can type that into our website. So go to our website and then give us feedback. There is a feedback and community forum portion of the website that allows you to provide us feedback. Tell us the things you like or maybe the things that we need to explore and look at changes to. We still have time to do that. This is why we are communicating with all of our stakeholders over the next several weeks before we bring it to our board in late May and early June. So please go to the website and give us that important feedback. Finally, I believe the time is now. 38 years is way too long for us to review our student choice assignment proposal in JCPS. For the first time ever, we're bringing an elementary, a middle, a high school, and a magnet plan together to better serve our kids in this community and to achieve better outcomes. I believe this will do this. This will bring sense of belonging to our kids. This will bring choice to our families like we've never had before, and we will have better resource schools than we've ever had before, especially in our choice zone. So the time is now to get this done. Thank you for your time and your input and feedback as we move forward.
All right, everyone, we know that that is a lot of information to take in. So just as you heard on that video from Dr. Polio, all of that information is available online for you to go over at your convenience. Now, before we start our question and answer, I want to bring in Dr. Marty Polio so he can welcome you all and thank you in advance for your feedback. Dr. Polio.
Thank you, Carolyn. And I never like listening to myself for 21 minutes, but I made it through. So I also want to reiterate, I know we'll have that presentation available online. So if you would like to review it or you weren't able to see it tonight, we would encourage you to go back and take a look at that because it does do a brief overview of the plan. But thank you for being with us tonight. We are looking forward to answering your questions and hearing your feedback on this student assignment and student choice plan.
Okay, as a reminder, here are our text line numbers. If you have a question about dual resides and feeder patterns, text us at 502-309-9316. If you'd like to ask a question about the magnet strategy, text 502-410-1148. And if your question is about the Choice Zone Support Plan, you can text us at 502-208-5915, and we can only accept text messages at these numbers. And the questions are already coming in, so let's just jump right into this Q&A. Dr. Polio, we have received a lot of feedback about boundaries. What can you tell us right now about where we are when it comes to boundaries and the feedback we've received?
Yeah, so we've received a lot of feedback. First, I want to say, first and foremost, how complicated, complex, and big the changes are and how long we have worked on these. That does not mean, though, that we don't want feedback and taking a look at some of the areas that we might be able to improve. Specifically, we got feedback on some areas where the school the high school, for instance, may be close to a boundary where a neighborhood walks to that school. And so we want to do what's best for students. At the same time, we know we always have to have a line at some point. And so we've had to implement that, but we've also taken a lot of this feedback and made some adjustments really around ensuring that we get as close as possible to 100% of our middle schools feeding into our high schools or into one high school as much as we possibly can. You also know that we've used major roadways in this plan. So one of the flaws of our current plan, as you will see, is that a lot of the boundaries are split right through the middle of neighborhoods. So trying to use major roadways, thoroughfares to mark boundaries has been important, but I know that has come to with some feedback. So we have taken that feedback. We've taken a look at it, worked with our consultant. We've made adjustments at this point to about 6 different school zones. The changes that we will be releasing next week, and I know they're substantial for the families involved in that neighborhood, although they are not huge changes. We do want those that are impacted to take a look at those changes that we'll be bringing to our recommendations. The schools that are impacted are Atherton, Ballard, Wagner, Highland, Westport, and the Olmsteds. So I would encourage families when we release those to take a look at those changes to a few of the boundaries. Once again, I'll say this, at some point, we have to evaluate it and say this is the boundary, and moving forward, this is where it will stay. But we are recommending 6 changes to those 6 schools, which will be released early next week.
Thank you, Dr. Polio. We have guests joining us from various groups virtually with questions tonight. Marian Vassar is the Director of Diversity Education and Inclusive Excellence at the University of Louisville. Good evening, Marian. I'd like to ask you to unmute and bring us your questions.
Good evening. And first of all, I want to clarify, I'm not here speaking for U of L, so I want that to be clear. So my question really addresses the elephant in the room. We know that not all JCPS schools excel at serving Black and Brown students. This is not a surprise, nor is it unique to the pandemic. Can you speak to us a little bit about what accountability will look like? And I'm specifically speaking of making sure that schools are not doing business as usual, but instead are striving toward more anti-racist pedagogy, anti-racist practices, and anti-racist policies. So how will you engage JCPS staff, faculty, family, and most importantly, students as we're talking about monitoring progress of the new plan?
And thank you, Marian. And I know you've been an important part of this work I know it seems like many years. We've been working on student assignment, and we've appreciated your input throughout the process. So first and foremost, around accountability. And I want to say this, when I say that student assignment and choice is an important part of breaking down achievement gaps and accountability and all of those things, but this is not the only thing around. This is one piece of the puzzle, an important piece, a very important piece, but only one piece of the things that need to happen across JCPS and the changes that need to happen. You know, I've talked many times about those other areas, how we teach, which you just spoke about, the facilities that our students are in, the extra learning time that students have, you know, improving attendance, getting technology into the hands of kids that need it the most, and especially the ability to access the internet outside of school hours. All of these things are critical. Improving our, our workforce, and ensuring that we are having things that they can go to our highest need schools. And we have processes in place to put that. So, we could probably do a whole session on that question alone. First of all, in the choice school, the accountability, we want to make sure that, number one, we are providing the resources that we say we're going to provide to our schools year after year. So well after I'm gone and this board is gone, that the community is made aware. JCPS promised this to us in our choice zone, the supports, and they are delivering on that. And that continued new revenue is going to support that, because we know $12 million right now will probably not be $12 million 10 years from now when we look at inflation. And so we have to know that if it's $12 million for the next 25 years, that is less support for the schools than they need. So putting that in policy. Second of all, having outside entities coming in to look at our schools, especially in our choice zone, but that are serving all of our students, especially our Black and Brown students, and providing the supports they need, and making public reports about that and to the board on a regular basis is a critical component of this plan, which I think is extremely important. And then finally, a part of this plan as well is that we are going to have a community task force. And that task force, and it's not it will be obviously JCPS staff led, but it will be a community task force. And so that task force will be getting ongoing quarterly reports from JCPS around accountability measures, answering your questions, getting your feedback, talking about individual schools to show that we are making the progress that needs to happen after this plan is implemented.
Thank you.
Thank you both. We have a question from our text line now, Dr. Polio. What about families who have relocated based on current district lines? What option will they have to attend the school they're currently assigned to?
So once again, I'll reiterate, any child who is in a current school right now will remain in that school. You know, it would be much more efficient for us just to say on August 15th, 2023, every single person moves to their new school. But this plan that we are presenting is all about what's doing best for kids and for children and for student outcomes. And so we know moving a student outside of their school when they've already established a school that they may love is not what's best for kids. So as I said, in 2023, we will start with kindergartners, sixth graders and ninth graders, so the other students may remain in their schools. I also want to reiterate to families whose boundaries have changed, we still have the choice process. So although we talk about assignment, that means that a family is just taking advantage of the assigned school to their household. That still gives them the option to apply for many different magnets and schools throughout their networks. For instance, you know, we've heard a lot about Atherton, and even if a student is in a Wagner reside zone, they can still apply for Wagner because they are a part of the same network. As a matter of fact, that student in a house would be able to apply to Ballard, Eastern, Atherton, Seneca, and take their home school of reside school as Wagner. So on top of that, all of the magnet choices that we have. So all of our students still have significant choice in this district, also along with their assigned school.
Thank you, Dr. Polio. A reminder for everyone now, here are our text line numbers. You can text your questions about the school choice proposal to the numbers on your screen. Now let's bring in Josiah Finley. He is a student at Atherton High School. Josiah, thank you so much for being here tonight. What question do you have about the proposal?
Good evening. I'm Josiah Finley, and I'm a student who has been applying to schools all throughout my school career. And I started out at Brandeis, moved to Newburgh, and then now I'm at Atherton. And of course, I made my mom and I made the choice to apply to those schools specifically for whatever programs that they have. And we've gone through issues with transportation. So my question to you, Dr. Polio, is how will busing be revamped to fit this plan that you have?
Great question, Josiah, and I appreciate it and enjoyed eating lunch, having some square pizza in the Atherton cafeteria. So thank you for hosting me back a couple months ago. Really enjoyed that. But I think that's a great question, and it's one of the things that we need to bring clarity to. And a problem that we have right now are there so many terms or use of the word magnet, for instance, as opposed to program. And so clarifying very specifically that if you are accepted into a magnet program or a full magnet school, you receive transportation to that school. There are a few other options that are not like in this plan. We are cleaning up things around the use of term open enrollment and transfers and being very clear about transportation as well. So that if you are accepted, Josiah, into, let's just use the IB program at Atherton, you would receive transportation to that program or that magnet program. I do want to say this, though, because I think it's an important part of next steps. We have talked about changing start times to schools based on students like yourself having the ability to sleep later. I'm assuming you don't go to bed at 9 o'clock every night. And so getting the ability to you start later and get more sleep is an important part of that. But the second part of that is balancing out our runs, our bus runs in the morning and the afternoon. So instead of having 700 in the first that drops kids off at 7:30, and then the next one 770 at 8:45, and then we have a final one for early childhood at about 9:45, is to balance that out for 500 each run. With that in mind, we would need less bus routes. We would be able to transport all of our students without some of the issues we face now, where we have second runs and third runs to schools and students having to get there a little bit early and stay a little bit later. So an important next step of this, and we did pause on that because we wanted to make sure we addressed the biggest issue we have, which right now is student choice and assignment. But we will be coming to that in the fall to go along with this as well, to take a look at next steps being balancing out those runs so that there are not holes in the transportation system where you might not get transported to a certain magnet where you've been accepted. But great question, Josiah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next question from the next line is, can you provide more information about the new magnet school at Western High School? What do you plan to offer?
Great question. And so just so everybody knows on the timeline, we have a lot of work to do to prepare that. So first of all, talk a little bit about the timeline on Western. I think this is an important part of it. So we will not begin accepting applications this October. It is important for us to plan and to make sure that we provide the exact right programming, get the supports we need, make sure the facility supports STEM learning, because this is going to be specifically focused on STEM and coding. We will provide, this is for students who have a significant interest in that specific area around IT and coding and STEM. And that will be a part of every student's everyday experience throughout their coursework at this school. So we will begin taking applications in the fall of that would be the fall of 2023, and it would begin with the 24-25 school year. So we are excited to begin this, but it would be lottery. First and foremost, students have to show that they have an interest. This is an interest-based lottery. We would have a lottery that would reflect the population of the district and accept students from all areas of the city, but it's going to be a very diverse school that is focused on STEM. We are going to have the best computers, the best coding, the best instruction for our students there. I envision things like having an eSchool national champion or eSport national championship team coming out of that school. I see them developing apps and coding and just doing amazing things out of that school. So exciting for the future of Western High School.
Thank you, Dr. Polio. Octavius Cox is with us tonight. He's a board member of the 15th District PTA. Octavius, what question do you have about the plan, about the proposal? Oh, we can't hear you. You're still muted.
See, there we go. I was talking on mute. I figured I was doing that. All right. So it states that within the new school that's coming to West Louisville, that there will be some more of the support for I think it was summer programs for learning. And so can you tell us what those programs would be for the students? Because I know just a few years ago, they had community liaisons in schools that would, kind of run those summer programs. So could you, tell us what those programs, for the summer would, look like for the new middle school coming to the West End?
That's a great question. Thank you. Appreciate that question. And I can tell you this, our goal is for all 13 choice zone schools to have thriving and robust both after school programming and summer programming. We want to make sure our students stay engaged. I can tell you this, our goal here, just like our backpack league in the summer, which last year we served nearly 8,000 kids And we want to continue to increase that. But our goal here is not to put kids in the traditional learning experience that they may not enjoy doing. We're working hard to make sure that regular school during the school year is more engaging, but summer learning needs to be different. It definitely needs to be more engaging for kids. It needs to provide activities that kids find inspiring to them, that they love to do, mixing in things around coding. We've done cooking, we've done athletics and sports and health and hiking and all kinds of things that have been a part of this. So that's where we see the most success. And so first and foremost is giving the school the funding they need to do that and the staffing they need to do that with some flexibility to meet their needs of the students in their school. So for instance, the students at Portland Elementary, they may find something passionate for their students and their school culture that may be different than those in Maupin Elementary. But we know that both will have thriving summer programming with staffing, the paid support from staffing, the paid support they need around transportation and food service, and then the engaging activities that they have. So it may look different at every school, but in the end, we will have an intense focus as well on making sure that math and reading instruction is there to support kids' ongoing learning. We don't see summer slide. We see continued engagement in school.
Thank you.
Our next community question is, my school is in a new cluster. How do I find out about my new choices?
So I would really encourage parents to go online to our website. We have a school and cluster finder. So a parent who lives in a home, they can go, and then that will give them links to the schools. And then I would really encourage that as we begin the new year to participate and partake in the various opportunities that we have for families, and we will make them as robust as possible this fall. Let's hope we are beyond any of the pandemic influences that we've had to face. As long as we are, we look forward to a very robust showcase of schools. I think that's going to be an important part for our families entering kindergarten, 6th grade, and 9th grade. I would highly encourage, I tell families all the time, all too often in our communities, especially in Jefferson County, families depend upon, rumor and reputation for what a school is effective at. I would highly encourage, visit the school, go to the open house, talk to the educators in that school building. I did the same with my daughter when we went to Hawthorne Elementary. Although some people said that's not the best school to go to where you live, we ended up visiting Hawthorne Elementary. We found that it was the best school for our daughter and had 6 great years at Hawthorne Elementary. So I would really encourage, go on the website and explore those options, visit Showcase of Schools in the fall, and then visit all of the schools for their open house to find out which one is best for each family.
Remember, you can text your questions to us at the numbers on your screen. If you have a question for the dual resides feeder patterns line, that number is 502-309-9316. The phone number for the magnet strategy line is 502-410-1148. And the phone number for the choice zone support plan is 502-208-5915. Again, these are text only lines. We cannot take your phone calls at those numbers. We have another question now from the community, and it says, it looks like I have less choices at high school. Is that true?
I'm not specifically knowing which, what are the specifics around which choices those are, but I would contend that every student now has equal or more options and choices than they had before. And so I want to reiterate once again, at the high school level, every student is in a network. So they are guaranteed their reside school in that network. Our students in the choice zone are guaranteed a choice zone and a reside. So they are already doubling their choices at the outset. But then every student is in a network 1, 2, or 3, as you can see based on the maps we showed earlier in the presentation. But a student in network 1, 2, or 3 can apply for any of the programs. So they have at least 4 or 5 additional choices based upon their network that they can apply for. So this automatically means that every single child in high school, for instance, has at least 5 schools that they can apply to in a network. Then when we layer on top of those the magnet options, which there are a multitude of high school options, from Brown School to our traditional schools of Mayle and Butler, to DuPont Manual, to Central High School. I could go on, to our district-wide magnets. For instance, we have the Southern program at Southern High School. We have a aeronautics program at the Academy at Shawnee. So when you layer all of these on top, there's a multitude of options for every single student at the high school level.
Thank you. Jim Cabral is here tonight. He's a board member of the 15th District PTA. Jim, thanks so much for joining us tonight. What question do you have?
So first of all, on behalf of all the PTAs and PTSAs in Jefferson County, thank you to Dr. Polio, Carolyn, and JCPS for giving us the opportunity to ask questions about this proposal before it goes to the board for approval. We understand this is a potential once-in-a-generation opportunity to better support our students, and the parents, teachers, and students we represent are grateful for the opportunity to participate in this process. So my question is from a parent who lives in the Shawnee area. If the middle school, and there's 3 schools planned for the West End as part of this, if the middle school that's part of that in the West End is not built before the 2023-24 school year, will those students in that area get a priority option to attend either Johnson or Western Middle to allow them to continue to go to school closer to home?
So great question, Jim. And so we want to be very transparent about that answer. There will not be a school built by the 23-24 school year. And so we need to be very clear about that. I do not want anyone to anticipate that by August 15th of 2023, that we would have a school built. I've learned through this process that any school build is an 18 to a 24-month process. And there are really, fortunately, some of the positive from the general session that on our next board meeting, we can pass a resolution as a board that we can now skip a lot of the red tape that may be happening in Frankfurt or the Kentucky Department of Education. So really what happened is that this on our next board meeting will actually shorten that time to about, we can now 20 to 22 months instead of 24 months. So I feel very confident. We are working right now and do plan to bring a recommendation to our board very soon about where that property will be built and beginning that process. But the earliest it would be the 24-25 school year. So the 23-24 school year, being very transparent with our families in West Louisville, we will need to have a holding school, so to speak, or an option in a location in West Louisville that would house the 6th grade for that specific year. We will have that information prior to school selection time. So early in the fall, we will have, what that school is going to be to have a 6th grade 1 year. Our goal would be then in 24-25 to have both the 6th grade and the 7th grade then moving in to the brand new school building. But there will be that 1 year transition period. We will have to do that. We want to be opening them up front with families so that they know if they don't want that option, then they still have the option to leave their community and go to the school farther away from home if that's their option until a school is built. But I will say this, if 6th graders decide I want to wait till the new school is built and they go to a school outside of their community, their resides zone school, they could then come back in the 7th grade to the brand new school. So there will be that option. They are not making that option for their entire middle school career if that's what the family wants.
Okay, thank you very much.
Dr. Polio, another question that was texted to us. Why does the magnet strategy not replicate Manual's Young Performing Arts School program for high school elsewhere in the district? The plan expands performing arts at lower grades, but there is no plan for making sure those students can continue their programming in high school.
I think that's a great question, Carolyn, and I appreciate that one. And phase 2 of our magnets, and I want to say this, the work we're doing on magnets will continue. We are obviously taking a large portion of the Magnet School of America recommendations, but one of those recommendations that we will continue on with is replicating popular magnets. And so our plan will be, as we pass this and get this implemented, is to begin looking at replicating popular magnets, which performing arts at both the elementary and middle has become a very popular magnet in our district, as well as the high school. So that could be in phase 2 that we replicate that performing arts high school.
And we have another magnet question. How will students be selected for the magnet at Western High School?
So at Western High School, once again, that will be lottery. So we do come into some complexities around criteria when we look at criteria. So performing arts at a high school level, the variety of programs, we understand that there can be some criteria for entering. So I could not enter a performing arts school to play a violin when I've never picked up a violin and have no idea what I'm doing. So there is some criteria to become a part of performing arts. But we also want to make sure that it's equitable, that we give all students the support they need, and we're not putting barriers into place. However, at Western High School, the new STEM coding program will be a lottery-based program. We will ask students to affirm their interest in this, that they show interest and tell us why they're interested in STEM and coding and this type of work, and then it will be lottery-based at that point.
We have just under 10 minutes left of our allotted time. Marion, I would like to ask if you have another question that you would like to address to Dr. Polio.
So I do not have another question. I've probably been 20 of these at this point, but I do want to publicly say I appreciate you, Dr. Polio, for unapologetically choosing equity over equality as it relates to the schools in the West End, and just being very, very upfront that they will get more resources. So just wanted to publicly thank you for that.
Thank you, Marion. I appreciate that. And I will say, I believe this, that we have to be convicted as a nation in resourcing our schools. The students who have the least amount of resources in their homes need to have the most amount of resources in their schools. That is an important concept that needs to be in policy for us. Unfortunately, in this community, as we know, childhood poverty has skyrocketed over the past 2 decades to a point where we are closing in. Right now, about 2/3 of our kids are on free and reduced lunch, closing in on 70%. And so sometimes the resources these kids and students need and families need occur at JCPS schools. And so those with the most need the most resources. So thank you.
Josiah, is there anything else you would like to ask about the proposal?
Just really quickly, how will this plan combat funding disparities in different schools in the West End?
Did you say funding disparities, Josiah? Thank you very much. Great question. So first and foremost, we implemented a new funding plan this year. So essentially, we have several factors involved all around poverty. For example, mobility, free and reduced lunch, things like that, that increase challenges for schools. And so, when a student enters a school, we want to make sure that that student gets more funding out of the budget allocation. But then secondarily, making sure that our board, who had a resolution around new revenue that we will be receiving in JCPS, crossing our fingers on that one, that we will then put those additional revenue sources in policy on a yearly basis to our schools in the choice zone. $2.5 million to the Academy at Shawnee, $2.5 million to our new middle school, and then $7 million spread over 11 elementary schools. So this will put the resources where they are needed most.
Thank you. Octavius, is there another question you would like to ask?
So no other questions at this time. I just want to commend Dr. Polio for the great work that you are doing, sir, and we appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you, Octavius.
And Jim, is there another question you have?
Yeah, one more question. As we all know, not all learning happens in the classroom. So my question relates to how this proposal affects after-school activities, right? So please explain how this proposal affects activity buses and other after-school options for those students who are bused outside of their area. will all students, no matter their address, get these opportunities?
Yeah, so that's a great question, Jim. And so, first I have to say the district has clearly focused on in recent years, not recent years, for my entire career on providing transportation for students who've lived in our satellite area for after school activities because the students have been asked to go farther away from home. I will say that unfortunately, over the course of my 2.5-decade career, I've seen less and less students being involved in extracurricular activities, specifically from our choice zone area, because the transportation issue is so hard. Compounding on top of that right now, a lack of bus drivers at the school level, and activity bus makes it very difficult. So yes, first and foremost, this is why it's important to give a child who lives close to the academy at Shawnee, who lives 1 block away and may want to participate in extracurricular activities, but because they have to get on the bus and go to a middle school like, Crosby Middle School, or a high school like Fairdale High School, which are great schools, but they can't stay at that school after school. And if they want to participate in extracurricular activities and can walk a block away, that should be the family's right and option to do that. So we're providing that, which should open up more transportation options for us at schools all around the district, so that we can begin providing transportation after these after school activities to all of our students. And so I know schools work the best they can to do that, but continuing to make sure that when families have this option to stay close to home, like all of our families across the county do, more and more students will be able to participate in extracurricular activities and get transportation afterwards.
Thank you again.
And Dr. Polio, we will get in one more text question. I am concerned that the schools in the choice zone are low performing. What options do I have beyond the choice zone?
So once again, I'll say this, that is the power of this plan, is that we are providing families a choice zone option, but we are also providing now a much better and aligned option in their resides area. So no longer with this option will a child have to attend Cameron Middle School and Valley High School, or Stewart Middle School and Ballard High School. No longer will that happen. So, the supports we provide our choice zone schools will dictate whether families choose that option or not. If they do not choose that option, they will still have the option, as they do right now, to leave their community, go to their farther away from home option, and it will be much better aligned. So a child who goes to Crosby Middle School will now not have to go to Doss High School. They can actually decide, we like going to Crosby Middle School, we like the programming at the school, we can now go to Eastern High School with my peers that may live next door to me or may live in Middletown. And that's a game changer for families. So the choice actually becomes much better now as a result of having that choice zone. But if we don't provide great options, families in West Louisville will not choose that option.
Thank you, Dr. Polio, and thank you all for your feedback and your questions tonight. Our text lines will be closing at 7 o'clock in just 2 minutes, but you can still send us your feedback online. All you have to do is go to our website, jefferson.kyschools.us. At the top of the homepage, you will see School Choice Proposal. When you click on that slide, it will take you to our School Choice Proposal page, where you can provide us with feedback and read more information on your time to get as much information as you need on this proposal. We thank you all so much for your attention tonight. I'll send it back to Dr. Polio to conclude the evening.
Thank you very much. And I would encourage once again to continue to interact with us. Use the text line. We also have an online feedback method that you can continue to do that. Next week, we will have 2 more sessions for families. They can come to TJ on Monday, Thomas Jefferson on Monday night at 6 p.m. We are focusing on English language learners, but we'll be open for the community. And then also Wednesday night at Ballard High School at 6 p.m. Please join us for those, once again, to continue to get informed and give us feedback as necessary. Thank you so much for your time this evening.